guess I'll say from all of this is that, and this is what the doers understand, repetition, you learn from repetition, you know? Right. Instead of just sitting there thinking about and contemplating all the time, you're like, well, that didn't work, so I'm certainly not doing that again.
That's how we calibrate, you know? There you go.
Yeah. For some people, it may feel stupid, but you gotta have mistakes so you can calibrate. I started to notice that in some people, and I think I really noticed it in myself when I was younger. When I look back, what I'm talking about is sitting and contemplating too long. So to me, there's a place for contemplating, and then there's a place for doing, right?
Yes.
And especially for me, a lot of times you might do a lot of models, you know, low code type of things, but it's a lot of logic involved. I'll use a lot of logic and a lot of code, simplified code, but it's still code. And then there'll be long lines of code. Like I might go up to like, not too many, but maybe like 100 lines of code or something like that, or maybe more sometimes. But the whole point of it is that when I'm trying to think about the logic of how I'm going to go about doing something, sometimes it benefits me to get away from the computer, just to think about the broad conceptual, you know, what am I actually trying to do? And that part helps. But then at some point in time, it becomes like if you're trying to do multiplication and you hear too much, it becomes this thing where it's too many pieces right now I'm juggling. I need to actually write these down or see them.
Yeah, it definitely gets overwhelming if you try to hold everything in your consciousness at the same time. It's like, oh, can't pick up new things. We got full now, and the error rate is going up. It's like, it's not doing this anymore this way. Let's write this down. All right.
Yeah, it's weird because I think for me the go-to is to try to remember. I don't know if everybody's like that. I'll just keep everything in my mind. Some people, I think it's funny because some people will think I want to keep track of things, so I'll just clean my room. And then some people are just like, hey, no, I know what that is.
Don't move that. That's where it's supposed to be.
Exactly. Like, how can you find anything in here? It's like, no, I know where it is. It's right there.
Very great spatial memory. I know where I put it down. All those associations, if you remove it from me, I'll have no more context clues. There will no longer be landmarks. Don't do that.
Yeah. So, but I think for me, as I've gotten older, I think I've known how I figured out some ways to game my mind. Sometimes I can use the abstract conceptual view or approach, and sometimes I use the hands-on, gotta write it down approach.
There's a time and place for that. Like, use the conceptual approach until you have 5 or 6 things. But when you start dealing with 20 or 30 things, like, you know what, writing this down. I've stored enough here. We get it. Now It's time to move on to the next step.
Yeah.
And I have to do the same thing with action. Like, for me, I have to make sure there's a time and place to contemplate. And it's great. I need to use the contemplation time to identify kind of what's important, figure out what standard I want to use, and then say all the things I want to focus on. Let's pick this one thing. All right, now I can write that down. All right, let's get to the stage where I want to brainstorm. I can write all these things down. Okay, I have a lot of ideas. Cool. Let's prioritize this stuff. I think there's a time to use the conceptual portion and a time to use the writing down portion, and then identify clearly what the criteria is for action. It's what are the things I need to get done? Which part of the problem solving do I need to get to before I can say, all right, I can plan around this. This is enough information to figure out what the next step's going to be.
Yeah, it's super helpful. But the thing is that I don't think that there's a perfect answer.
Oh, no, this is all
as you go along. You know, and the way that I determine is it becomes okay, let me do this in my mind, or let me think about the concepts involved. And then sometimes I'll get to this point where it's an intuitive idea of, no, this is going to take too much, or this costs too much. You know, think, I'll say, well, here's a process that I want to do, but if I want to automate this process, I'm going to have to do this, and this. Am I going? It's investment. It's investment management.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's just, what are you going to spend your time on? Is this worth it? Is the return worth it? I could do this, and this. That's going to require me to do 7 things every single time I do this step. Is that worth it? Is the investment I'm going to make beforehand and during going to help enough for me to be like, you know what? Yeah, I will commit to do this multiple times. I don't know.
That's the hard thing for me. I think my mind is already automatically geared towards not doing things the same thing multiple
Right?
times.
You're like, no, not doing this. It's like it's a discipline issue. I'm like, it's an efficiency issue. Every day I'm going to have to choose to be inefficient. I'm not going to be able to make that choice. I'm like, this is going to cost a lot, time wise, energy wise, will wise. I'm not willing to use those resources every single day. I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah.
I know I will make this choice differently next time. Let's not do it now.
It's the beauty of finance, because you got your investment costs. That's the downtime that you have because you've decided to come up with an automated fix. You're generating an automated fix for a repeated problem. But you need to know, how many times am I going to repeat this problem? Right. If I'm not going to repeat this problem, this fix except for like 3 times, let's say it's costing me $6 altogether, but I got to take $10 worth of mind share to come up with the fix. Don't come up with the fix. Just do it every time.
Do it every time, right?
Right. So
this is not a long term. This is not going to be needed long term. I will do the short term for as many times as we have to, all 3, 4, 5 times, and like move on. All right.
Yeah, but you actually have to do that work to really get it.
Yeah, calculate it on the front end.
Yeah. But I know those are similar to the concepts that you talk about. It's almost like critical path for project management and stuff like that. They all.
Yeah, that's huge. If you can master that stuff, you can free up so much of your life and so much of your time. If you can do that consistently, then you have so much more willpower to be able to not only solve your problems, but also like have the bandwidth to say, like, what's the next step now? What can I do to solve the problem that created this problem?
Yeah. But it's just so tricky because it's so many. I can see how somebody who has a very rigid approach to problem solving can get stuck.
Yeah.
Because you start to think everything is a straight line. Like all we have to do is this, and all we have to do. There are little glue steps here and there. Don't get me wrong. If you understand the steps that are straight and how straight lines, and not necessarily curved lines, but lines that aren't curved enough to warrant your attention. If you understand how they work, it's like, okay, we have guidelines. We need this process done. Yeah, it's other things that's involved in this process, but this process as a whole is a straight line. We need
the main parts are the straight. Like we have most of the information we need to have a linear logical process. We know A to goes to B, we know B goes to C. We don't have to guess about that. We can put that in a system, and now we can say we can expect the same outcome every time. All right, great. Let's run with it. And that's great until things change. And that's it's great to have really close feedback loops. And I think that's the part that we always skip. We're just like, all right, I'm just going to run blindly in this direction because it worked last time. Like, it's cool until we need it, until it's something important, until it's these are resources we can't waste, like your life. Then we need to be a lot more judicious about what we do and how we do it. Then we need to start saying, maybe there's some other ways to know if this is working out well, or it's going to end in a unhelpful result.
Being the type of person who thinks, I guess everybody has to think with ideas, but has a trust in ideas. I see the flaw in thinking that either side is the end all be all. Right. And neither side is the end all be all, because ideas, people have to forget. I think people forget, like, ideas are imaginary. But you have to think in ideas,
right?
So it makes it tricky.
They're not. They are conceptual. They have a relation to real things whenever we apply them to real things. But yes, they are certainly not concrete. You can't eat the idea of bread. It's like, bread is great. I can think about it and I can just picture what bread tastes like. I'm sure you can imagine that. That's certainly not going to keep you full enough to like run a race or do something important. So let's all just accept limitations.
Yeah, but it just gets people to have this argument. It's really the empiricist, nominalist, or empiricist, rationalist, normalist, whatever. I can't remember which one. I should probably know.
Yeah, you're right, empiricist. You're right.
Okay. So it's still the same argument. It's the whole argument of, is the concept the real thing, or is the real thing the real thing? And we can't really come up with concepts.
Right. I always find that humorous. I'm like, the concrete is the real thing, and the concept is our description of the real thing, because we don't actually know what it is. No one has. I don't know. When I say I know this tree exists, I don't actually know every nook and cranny of this tree and everything down to a cellular or chemical level. I'm like, what I'm saying is I understand the concept of trees. This thing, it is large, just like a tree. It is shaped just like a tree. It does all the things normal trees do. I'm going to assume, more than assume, that this thing I'm calling a tree is still a tree. It's still going to have all the qualities that I associate with trees.
Exactly. It has to be a tricky piece because it's had people arguing for centuries.
Yeah, I think the arguments have not been very helpful because people want absolute knowledge. And it's like, oh, we don't have absolute knowledge. Like, oh, then we can't have a discussion. Like, I mean, we don't have absolute knowledge about anything. Like, right. Nothing we can have a conversation about. Absolutely. You want a level of proof that is not available to human beings. And so we all can want those things, but we can't use it as the standard of conversation. That's too much. It's like, well, then you just don't know these things. That's true. I don't know these things.
And neither do you.
As far as I'm capable of as a human being to know it.
Right. But neither do you. The other person. You don't know these things either. And you just said we don't know. The thing that's irritating about the mentality that you just said is that they say you don't know these things, which means that they don't know these things, but then they proceed to tell you what to do.
Right. Like, you don't know, and therefore your opinion is invalid. I'm like, we don't know, so our opinion is limited here. It doesn't make it invalid. It just makes it contextually limited to here. That's crazy. Right. They do say, like, your opinion is invalid, but mine is not. You can do what I say.
I think some people recognize this, right? But it makes the way that they just kind of easily do that. It's like, do they really recognize? Are they not paying attention to what they said just cannot be true at all? Or are they trying to game me? Is this you think I'm a lick or something? You think, so that's the I don't know. It's that thing where I wouldn't say always, but you get the inkling like, oh, maybe this is a person that just, has a failure in knowledge or a lack of understanding. Let me help them. And
maybe they are genuine. Maybe they are really trying to find out the answer. Like, I don't think they are. I don't think they care about that at all. Nope.
I guess I just had to take them at their word and hold them to their word. I think that's right.
Accountability is the key. I think that's 100% right. When they're like, this happened and I can't know this and no one can know things. I'm like, okay, if you can't know things, then I guess we're going to have to move on to something else. You just said it. That's where we're at. No, that's not what I meant. No, that's what you said. That's where we're at. You said human beings it's impossible to know past this area, and you're a human being, so am I. So I guess we can't discuss this way since we both don't know anything about that. Okay, but what do you know then? I'll talk to you about that. We can talk about contextual information. How about that? You went through this experience. What happened?
But when they explain it to you, it's not going to be anything that you can use it, but it's not going to help you have a better conversation.
No. It just their argument immediately. Like you can stop pretending like they're both working in good faith.
Yeah, man. The thing is, I take them at their word. I treat the situation like they know better, but I'm not sure that they know better. But I'm not really interested in trying to figure out the difference between the two, because for me, it's like you're not putting in the effort to understand. And if you don't do that, then you're not going to understand.
And you're also not going to have any leeway with me. You're not going to have any room to stand. Like, you have no foundation. So you can just and you were free to keep talking, but none of your arguments carry any weight because you don't have any evidence anymore. And I think that's the part that, while humorous, is also sad. I'm like, I want there to be more clarity when people just say, well, that's what you think, and that's just how you live, and I can't accept that. I'm like, well, great. You don't have to accept it, but now you've abdicated the position of expertise, ownership, leadership in this area. Like, nothing you say matters now. So we can I want to call that out. And there's like, you have said that you aren't good at this right here. This is your area of ignorance, and that's fine. So I no longer am listening to you about this. We can talk about something else. Talk about something else you like.
I agree, man.
Yeah. It's just, people won't do that. They'll just start arguing back and forth. We go back and forth. Like, we have now devolved into he said, she said, and I don't believe what you said, and you don't believe what I said. I'm like, all right, this is now an unproductive conversation. You have solutions, I'm listening, but if you're not having solutions, we don't have to have this conversation. I no longer care what you think. Like it's you have said you don't know, and I believe you. Let's move on.
But I guess one of the things I like to talk about is I feel like that's your defense mechanism. And I know some people don't like to do that, but I feel like there are people who their only relevance is you paying attention to their argument.
Yeah.
Right? So if I withdraw my sanction and say, hey, if what you're saying is true, then that should work out for you. I'm done here. I'm done here.
You let me know.
Yeah.
More than happy to discuss how that goes.
But that's never what, I don't think that that's what the intention of what they're trying to do. Well, there's some people who will argue with you on something that they know that they're wrong about and don't care. And the only penalty they pay is when you let them say, hey, okay, go ahead and take what you just said and did and go live on that. Like have real life objective results on that idea. And that's not some things people say that's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Some things take way too long for them to actually have real life in time results for them to be useful. So that's yeah.
Good. I know I popped in some questions, and I know you had probably some questions that you had that's still lingering over from the time before.
Yeah, there's something you can think of from last week. Bring it back because I don't remember.
No, I don't think anything. So last week I was already lagging it. For me, I was kind of tired, but I know hot off the presses was the debate, and that turned into really a meme. To be honest with you, over and it was a funny meme though, because
at least there was that. At least it was humorous, got some entertainment value from it.
But the sad thing is, it just once again, and I don't really have to talk about it too much, but it's just the sad state of the political candidates that we have, and I'm not going to get too riled up over presidents, but I think the view on presidential the race that we have right now. Not to say because to me, it's not king, it's president, right? But at the same time, it says something about the culture, right?
Completely, at least for the majority of it.
Yeah. So for me, coming off the heels of Obama, even with Obama, I just got the sense that, there's intelligence there, right? There's some there. I don't even think that Obama gave too much word salad. He could do it. There would be times when I used to listen to Obama. I'm like, man, that was a really moving speech. I don't agree with it at all, but that was a really great speech. You know what I'm saying?
Right. For the hell out of that. That was awesome. It wasn't true, but it was like very well delivered.
And I don't even know if I would say we can get into the truth because that's so long ago for me right now, but Harris will serve you up fresh word salad. Like Biden would serve you up fresh word salad.
Over and over again. And
Trump, even though he doesn't even attempt to serve you a fresh word salad, he's just take these old stale breadsticks. It's just the way that I'm thinking about, because I know the types of things that he's going to say. It's like, no, this was great. This was the greatest thing ever. We did it. I did this. This was great. No one has ever done this ever in the history of the world.
They were against me, but they're on my side now. They're my best friends now. We talk all the time. We're great. It's amazing. I watch their kids. Like, what is happening? What are we talking about? Okay, we got in the Trump world again, in Trump land, and we're just saying things.
Yeah. I guess it makes some people feel comfortable. It's so like the world that we're in. Maybe for people who are younger than 25, 30, they don't understand how hilarious it is that Trump is leading the right-leaning Christian.
Right? It's like, you don't even see the history. Man, that would be great. If someone could just make a class or a random, not a meme, but like a quick succession of events of just like, this was Trump in the 90s, now this is Trump now. And this is the person people are like, he is the bastion of hope and right. Like, this guy, are you sure? Are y'all messing with me?
It's crazy to me. But at the same time, to me, Trump is the business guy that's in politics. I think that we got an abundance of business people in politics in a sense. And
he's doing it.
I don't think that they should be.
He's leveraged his business experience to negotiate in a way that is next level. And I appreciate that. But I also think that the things he talks about, fights for, wants to do, like the ways he wants to go about doing some of the things that he talks about, I was like, this is terrible. This is a terrible idea. we should all recognize this thing as not okay. Anyway,
I kind of have to look at it like this. Of all the terrible ideas that I see politically, I think Trump could have the best of the terrible ideas, because I think Trump is more of a, hey, smart guys, what should I do here type of person. Not to say that I'm going to say it here. I think he would take their advice, but I think when he does his microphone thing, I don't think that that's fully attached to the people he lets advise him, if I'm not mistaken.
Has he done that? Sure. Does does that happen all the time? No. And I think that's my concern, is that there are many times, he has gotten better advice from experts, and he has rejected that advice to say whatever came into his head at the time. And I know nobody wrote that down. I know nobody said you should just randomly just go around, inject yourself. That clearly was a half-formed thought that didn't come out with words.
Well, no, see, that's what you got to understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that he's going to say the right thing on the microphone. What I'm saying is what he says and what he actually does. I don't think that those things are always connected. Right. He may take the advice of somebody, say something on a microphone that's ridiculous, but then possibly do something similar to the person or people that he took advice from. Right? That's my opinion, because I think he's just one of those types of people. I don't think that Trump really warrants an analysis. Well, maybe psychologically, cool. Type wise, that might be interesting. Right. But from a political standpoint, for somebody that's got so much bearing in people's lives, I don't think that, it's all bad. And so I'm really arguing about what's less bad out of the all bad.
It's like, this is terrible. This is a little less terrible than other parts. Okay.
That's the only thing I'm thinking about.
On a continuum, I can see that. I can definitely say there's certainly a gradient to the terrible that we have to experience.
Yeah, for me, this becomes, I'm trying to work it out in my brain this whole election. This becomes the older sense of life versus a newer, selfless, radical approach. To me, this is like with the other person, it's almost as if the 1960s wins. The radical Black Panther Marxist college campus taking over type of stuff. We did it. We put it. We put in the 60-year plan. We took over the schools. We influenced the culture. We push. Now we back them in the corner till we're going to get somebody in there that really has no ideas, and we can do all of the stuff. And
it's certainly a push. It is certainly a competition of two ideologies.
I'm just trying to do the logical math in my mind, and I don't really have any concrete evidence, because there's really nothing concrete to talk about for me. Well, there is concrete. There's no good here. That's what I'm saying. There's no good
here, yeah.
And so more or less, I'm like, do I want an ancient? And I think because we have understanding a common language, not to know that, I don't know if anybody else does, but when I say ancient, it's not an ancient sense of life, but a sense of life of America that goes back to have some sense of personal freedoms and individuality or something like that. Even if it's not perfect, because he's not perfect, right? For me, I don't get the sense that that's like they use the word freedom, and it's like we're really going to change the definition of the word freedom. It's different. Yes. So
yes,
it's true. A scheme. And for me, I'm thinking, because I hear a lot of people, even in the objectivist community, they're like, well, I can't vote for Trump. Now they've got me looking at Kamala Harris like she's a candidate. And I'm like, really?
Right virtues. Name me one. Name me one thing you want to see from her that you think she's actually going to do. Tell me something that you value in her character that you're like, yes, I want to see more of this, please. There are no good answers, because clearly the answer is nothing. But it's it's frustrating to me because we're not even having the real conversation.
No, that's because it's so bad. And this is why I think, I'm like, is this a plan? Did somebody plan this?
Yes, they had the plan. But when they planned it, I'm just surprised that this got the go ahead. Like, this has the feel of someone saying, oh, I really want this to happen, I'm just going to push this through because I have a strong feeling about it. Because logically, after the Trump loss against Hillary, I'm like, yo, in a world of white people, even the white people didn't vote for you. Let's all agree that's going to be problematic. They're like, it'd be great. Let's get a black person up there. Move the black person away. And I'm like, yo, that's not how this has worked. Work for Obama. Like one time out of all of human history, it worked. But I don't think we should make that the standard of like, this is what we expect now. I'm like, we don't expect that. We've had a lot of black people run and a lot of black people lose. So let's not pretend that this is a race issue.
Yeah, but
anyway, all I'm saying is it's crazy to me because people are looking at the polls like, well, Kamala did okay this time, so she'll probably win. I'm like, I don't know if you've seen America, but like, I do not typically get behind the idea that they're going to randomly support people who look different than them and do things differently than them and think things differently than them. The majority of America is not leftist and focused on these ideas of kindness enough to say, like, this needs to be the only thing I vote for.
I think that was the only thing that they could pull out. Because remember, this started with Biden.
Right.
You know, he was going. And then it was like, oh, man, this is too embarrassing to continue.
Right.
You know, and it's funny because we said this person can't continue. And this person is actually the president of the United States.
Like, it's impossible. They can never do this job. Well, they are doing this job right now. They have.
So, and I haven't really seen them. Maybe they push him out there here and there, but I don't really see him. But I'm not necessarily watching news that much either. But at the end of the day, man, okay, yeah, older sense of life, newer radical, and I don't say radical just disparate. Maybe I shouldn't even use the word radical. Just like they're just when I see it, I'm just like, it's completely selfless. That's no ideas. Anyone can fill me with ideas, but I also have the energy and the emotion of, man, I just think that she just give a voice to irrationality. I think that's what it is. And it's not like I don't think Trump would not, but I wouldn't. I feel like he's been the president before and the world didn't blow up. And these are two bad candidates. I don't think that the newer candidate has, like you said, anything good to offer. Like, I'm not looking forward to anything. I don't think she's actually said anything for me to look forward to or not look forward to.
She did not look forward to. She really had some ideas about how to stimulate the economy that I think I'm like, this is terrible. Please never do the things you say. That's going to kill us. It's going to kill the incentive to work harder. If you give people these credits, if you punish the people who are rich, you understand that's going to drive prices up. That's why prices are high, so rich people can pay their bills. If you increase their bills, then the prices go up. That's how math works. Please don't do this to me. That is a terrible plan. Your random ideas have consequences. Those consequences can be negative. In this case, they're definitely negative. It's not a question of, we'll just have to see. We don't have to guess. It will negatively affect me. Do not do this.
But see,
they got their fair share. They are paying all of our paychecks. If you make them pay more, they will just make us get less and then spend more. Like, that is the only way they'll be able to, quote unquote, pay this magical fair share that just happens to be increasing every day. It's not a good choice.
So the argument that I hear, even from people who I think people think are intelligent, and I probably do too, but which I think is a bad argument, is that one of Yaron Brooks' positions is that he just votes for gridlock. He's like,
it's like, if you're stuck, you can't do this. So.
Yeah. So pretty much, yeah. If you this person gets in, these people are in Congress, this person's a president, they may say this crazy stuff, but these people will never let it happen. So we just vote to do nothing. But to me, it's if the chips don't fall how you want them to fall, because you got to have president and Congress be on different pages for that to happen. Right. And what if they don't fall on different pages? What if you don't, oh man, we didn't get the House like we thought, or we didn't get Congress like we thought. Now we've got Democratic president, Democratic Congress.
Right.
And the thing is, even if some crazy stuff goes, which if that would have happened, I think some crazy stuff would go. I think, man, who knows in this time? Like, you can't really know anything because people say nobody would do this.
We don't have control over this. All we can do is wish for the best, but let's not pretend that I'm going to use my one vote to change millions of other people's that's not what's happening here. We're gonna wish for the best. We're gonna make our one vote and just do what we can to influence those around us.
Yeah, but I guess my point is that I can't be shocked about stuff anymore. Like, sometimes I'll think, oh, nobody would do that, and it's like, oh, somebody wants to do that. Like, it's one thing to say that you want to do it, and then it's another thing to do it. I'm assuming that some of these things that I think are crazy could actually happen if you're in a position. So, yeah, man. But like I said, that to me is, when I think about that, the state of politics, I really think about the future, because it's bad right now. So I'm not worried about it. And I'm not one of these people I'm not leaving the country. I'm
like, they don't care about me. I'm not number one on anybody's hit list. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to go ahead and live my life the way I have.
Yeah,
like, we have new rules. So I'm going to try to find what the rich people are doing to avoid these rules and just comply as much as I can to get over this. They didn't ask me.
I think that part, I'm a little different, because like, I might hear something from people who are very close to me, and they'll be like, what makes you think that you can do blah, 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 blah? And my mind always just says, well, somebody did it.
Right.
And they didn't care what you thought about it. So as long as I keep my I don't care what you think about it mentality, then maybe I might just look up and have progress. So that's the way my mind works.
It's the best way. You go until you can't. You do what you can, and that's all you need. That's all that matters. That's all you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, but I do think there are people who get discouraged. So when I think about the people who are like that, I think about the part where Rand talks about people being social ballasts. And I'm like, oh, these are the ballasts. These are the people that just hold down the middle. If you introduce good ideas to them, that's one of my favorite passages or excerpts or whatever you want to call it. What can one do? Because it's just like, most people are social ballasts. Most men don't come up with the ideas, but they can understand ideas and apply them, And that's the piece for me. That's what makes the philosopher so interesting, so dangerous, so powerful. If you can come up with an idea that people can grasp and can use, it's like technology. You introduce something into the world, like somebody knows what a large language model is. I kind of know what it is, but I'm using it. But you take these ideas, you come up with them, you put them into the ether, whatever I would call it, but they just take flight because they're useful. They're good, And that's just how I see any other idea. If somebody were to break down, this can really lead me into a point, actually. Just, how to think, how to address, depression, or how to address, mental illness by having a specific, or having a moral approach, having an approach that has approach to mentality that, has when I say moral, I guess I'm making some assumptions. For me, an approach to mental health that does not encourage second-handedness or extroversion, rational extroversion, or some people might call it vicariousness, or a collective mentality. To have an individualistic approach to mental health, which I think would clear up people. Like, if you were able to help people have an individualistic approach that is not in contrast with their view of morality, I think that will help people in their approach to mental health. So I think this is the point that I wanted to get to, but it's kind of staggering, is that the thing that I see missing in the individualistic conversations, objectivism, all of that, individuality is a good thing, but I don't want to talk about individuality just for individual things. Like, what is my individual approach to family? That's my point, right? Mm-hmm. And what it is to me is that, hey, there's a logical way that I can explain the emotions tied to a family from an individualistic point of view. And if I can clear that up or gives people some path to say, I have an understanding of my emotions for my family now. Now this concept is not just something that I just throw around. Now it's something that actually has a purpose or actually has a logical pathway to this emotion.
Give it a foundation in reality. Have some sort of justification.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I try to do in alternative perspective piece of the book. It's just like, hey, you have social equity with the people around you. I guess this is my take over time, right? But I don't know how you would actually verify this or not. Ideas come from a place. They came from a place of need. These are the reasons why we have these ideas. Work was good because it helped us get food, because it helped us live and feel good, right? So this is why nobody just said, you know what? It'd be cool to just work a lot, and we should just do that for no reason at all. I just don't think people did that. I think it was like, hey, food is hard to get. We're hungry. And, in the beginning, in the early days, hunters and gatherers, foraging animals or whatever you can get to eat. And I think sometimes you'll see remnants of it when you look at some of these shows like Naked and Afraid. Eating every day is not easy when you don't have tools, you don't have a city. When we want chicken, we go to the store. When other people want chicken, like back then, you gotta go get the chicken or whatever. But the whole point of it is that you had to do things to get the outcome, to get the food, to get the reward. And then you were with these people that you were geographically connected to, like before airplanes, before buses. Like your family is your everything. So these ideas to me just coalesced over time. I'm probably going on and on and on, but
it's cool to see how those ideas built on each other and how they kind of coalesce and whatnot. I think it's really helpful to know that like there is a justification. It's not just a biased perspective for everybody in the sense of you versus me or us versus them or whatever. We don't have to rely on rules. We don't have to rely on whims or just random preferences. We can say like, no, there's a real reason. There's a reason for things that are based in reality that have to be done and have to be followed if you want the outcome of a good life, of a reasonable life, of a life that actually leads to flourishing or leads to you having better and better things long term. And I think that's a helpful perspective to say, when I say individualism or individuality, what I am saying is that you need to be rational enough to be evidence focused, to focus on reality and to accept what it gives you. And then to say, this is the outcome I get for my actions. This is what I got. And therefore, it was important for me to take care of myself so that I would have the resources I need to achieve my goals. Full stop. And then once you have that justification, then you can say, one of my goals is to have people around me that I like. Those people needed things. I had to take care of myself so I could give them the things they needed. And then now that these people are here, I want to make sure that this culture that we have, like, I want to make sure we all have similar values. The things I care about, I want to see reflected in the people around me. I want to see the character reflected in around me. I want to see the good things I do. I want to see those people do as well, so that we can make the good things we do even better. I want that to continue to expand until this culture reflects the neighborhood, reflects the district, reflects the country, whatever. All of these things can be done with principles. I want these principles to be accepted by as many people who are willing to accept it. But they do have a basis in reality because they actively have demonstrable proof in my life.
Yeah. I would say though, that's true. But I'm thinking along the lines of equity. That's why I'm talking about social equity. I'm trying to pull up the book right now. I'm thinking about along the lines of equity. And the way that I framed it, and the way that I think about it is there's this, I'll do this for you because in the grand scheme of things, not to say that I know it's coming back, we just share this mutual interest in each other, right? Think about a family, like not even mother, father, but brother, sister, right? I'm not thinking about every time you took this and every time I took that. It's like sometimes you have things, sometimes I don't, or sometimes I'm having a hard time. And sometimes, you take the time to talk to me or just interest in my life. That's how I look at it. That's how I think of it all as interest. It's very much like, because when I think about somebody who I don't know and I don't care for, I'll give you a first pass at trying to help you. If you do stuff that I don't necessarily, if I feel like you squandering the help that I'm giving you, or you're not really paying attention, I'm not interested in helping you that much anymore.
Nope. You know? That is the trade we're doing. Everything is a trade-off, but every interaction is a trade. If I invest in you, I expect a certain return. It may not be the exact thing that I gave you. If I give you $100, I don't always get the $100 back. But if I give you $100 to help you eat, I expect you to be fed and full. I don't expect you to come to me the next day like, hey, everything that you gave me, I've squandered, and I'm in the same situation of pain that I was last time. I'm like, oh, that defeats the purpose of me giving you things.
Right.
I don't want to keep doing this anymore. This return is terrible.
But I think you make a great point, because I think when it becomes tit for tat, it's like I don't go to the store and give them $100 and they give me $100 back.
Right.
I go to the store and I give them $100 and they give me something that I determine to be of fair value for that trade.
There you go.
So it's a value.
It becomes, are you willing to trade reasonably and actually be a real producer, or are you going to engage in fraud and theft? Like it's
that's stark.
I want to be nice about it, but I'm like, technically, if we agree to do something and one of us doesn't uphold the end of a bargain, that's actually not okay.
Wow. So what you just said just takes me to Jung, because it's just some people understand what you just said, and some people, for him, the way he explains it, they're just not irrational. They're not thinking in those terms. They would never say it in that way. For you, it might be clear and clean. Like, hey, no, this is why this happens. We have contracts. I gave you this. You give me this. But for them, it's just like, no, life happens. You know?
Like, who knew it was going to happen? How could we have avoided this? Easily? We could have easily avoided it. You didn't decide to renege on your part of the agreement.
But that's why, to me, you got to be tough on certain types of people, and it becomes an experience. Like, I think there's some people who can't learn without an actual experience, which is, to me, sad in a sense. And I think I might need to clean that up a little bit. You can learn from other people's experiences. I can look out and say, man, it's hard for me to explain my thought process to some people, because here's the thing. I have personal experiences, but then I also make assessments based on the things that I see happen with other people. So I'll have an idea of the way the world works. And then I might see something on YouTube that has some relationship to that same thing that I'm doing, the concept. And I'm like, oh, wow, that actually pushed the boundaries. I can take my confidence interval out a bit further, because I didn't know you could do this like that. And somebody actually did it like that. So now I don't have, when I actually do the thing, yes, it's going to focus in on an actual action. But when I'm thinking about it, it's just a guiding concept. So now that I've seen that concept can be widened, there's there's more space, or I guess you would call margin, to actually put in this idea. So now I'm thinking this can actually go from here to here. I'm blanking on my statistical language. It's not a circumference. Range. I guess I would call it a range. Right? Okay. So yeah, here's the range that I can use as far as the idea that I'm using. But I don't think most people, I know that they don't really operate like that. So they're like, I guess the point that I'm making is that I am looking at not the specific example. I'm trying to think of all examples I can think of similar to that thing. And then when I apply it, I'll try to apply it in the best means possible. I don't limit my mind to only the things that I've experienced.
Right. You broaden things out to all the experience that's recorded that you know about. And as you find more evidence, you change your opinion. It's like, all right, let's include that now.
But I wouldn't say change my opinion though, Josh. Sometimes you may change your opinion. Sometimes you're just expanding it's introducing an outlier to your data set. Let's say like this. When I first encounter one situation that I've never encountered before, this is why first impressions, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. I got one data in my data set. To me, the same thing is going to happen that happened the last time. Right. For the most part, you know what I'm saying? But if I start having 5, 6, 7, 800 examples, I've got all of these different data sets, and now I have this standard kind of curve over this data set. So now I have this range of, okay, something between here and there is going to happen. And so as you get more and more data sets, regardless of how crazy the new data is, the interval, the bell curve is not just going to go from one data set to the next, like all the way out. It's not, you've got to incorporate that new data point with those other 1,000 data points. So it's not going to make your model expand but so far. And it may even be an outlier where you just be like, I don't even care about that thing. I'm not even going to expand it. So one of the things that like even I took out of the book was a lot of things that I talked about with thinking with that piece. It's just that these concepts that we come across in statistics, finance, this is the way to think. A lot of these things is just the way, it's just thinking put down on a piece of paper. That's all it is.
So people who describe their thought process, this is how this worked. This is how I went. This is from A to B. I discovered this evidence. It made sense with this portion. The principle was this.
Yeah. And it's just, even like when we started off this conversation, we talked about basically putting out effort into a process that you know that you're going to repeat. I'm thinking of it just like I would think of an investment analysis.
Yeah.
What are the initial costs? What are the, sunken costs, initial costs? How long is it going to take me to get my return back? And the return doesn't necessarily have to be money. When I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking like time, and then I can relate time to something else. Yeah. So if I put this effort out here, then if I do it 5 times, I'll have my money back or my time back by then. And then everything beyond 5 times is gravy. So yeah, this is a good idea if I got to do it more than 5 times.
But not a lot of people can think like that. Like some people don't understand the idea of risk versus reward, benefit versus just detriment. They don't have the facility of thinking through everything as a inherent risk. They're just like, risk is something that other people think about, and this is just us living life. It's a unique experience, and therefore no one can know what could happen. It's all just magic. I hear you. It is unique to you at the moment. This is your unique experience, but I don't think no one can know anything about this experience just because it's unique to you today. I think other people have had experiences that relate. They relate to it. They're not the same. They are similar. They're similar enough where the principles stand.
But see, the thing that bothers me, I don't know why I say bother. The thing that baffles me a little bit more is the people who actually use these concepts at work and then come home and totally forget about it.
Right.
You use an investment concept at work and you don't use it in relationships. You don't use it when you're dealing with people in the street. You're just like, oh no, this is totally different. This is something else.
Right.
And I think it's not crazy. It's just, it's bad that that's the standard operating procedure, it seems to me. Kevin Samuels even talked about that. When he talked about women, he was saying that, a lot of y'all, taking his argument, a lot of you women go to school, you've got these degrees, and a lot of you even work in sales and marketing, and you know how to address your customer at work. But then when you come back to relationships, you don't care anything about the customer in your relationship, the man in your life. You don't know anything about him. You don't know, your customer in and out at work. You know what they do, you know what they eat, you know where they shop, you know all these different things, you know what they like. You get a relationship with a person. No, this is, you can't relate that to this.
Right.
This is the exact time when you want.
Yep, it's true.
When I think about that, I just think about mind-body dichotomy. Because I think people separate thinking from emotion, mind from body. And for some people that may not directly connect, but to me, that's how I perceive it. Thinking and emotion and mind and body is how I think of it. Or conscious versus subconscious in a sense, but not completely that way.
But yeah, there definitely are people who take certain principles that may apply and refuse to apply those principles in a lot of other areas. And it's like some skills are transferable, not everything, but some. And when it comes to contractual or relationships between people, if it's a relationship at work, a relationship at home, there are some transferable skills. Most of those skills are transferable. And people were just like, no, it's a different category. We can't do it that way. And like, it is a different location, but it's not a different category. We're still people. There are people here at work. There's people here at home. Both have needs. We both have wants. We're making bids for things, and we're approaching these relationships in a way to find out how we can get our needs met. Like that is the same. And so in business and in relationship, it is similar enough to where people shouldn't give up to the point of just saying like, oh, I did this at work, but I refuse to do this anywhere else. It's like, come on, you can do a little more.
I mean, I think the better fundamental concepts can be transferred everywhere. This is why, to me, financial concepts are so good, because really financial concepts at their root are about value exchange. And life between people is value exchange.
Yes.
That's what it is.
We want to live.
You want to live, and you want to live, and living, I think to me, you have to have a specific definition about living. So like living is, living as far as getting resources and food and all of those things. But living also, I think you have to look at it from the enjoyment that you get from having a wife, having kids, having your family around, having relationships. That's also, for some people, if you take those things away, that's really not living, right?
I hear you. Yeah, some things make life worth living, and you take those things away, they're like, I don't want to be here if that's not a part of it.
Right. I mean, because like Tom Hanks, think of if he didn't have Wilson, he almost killed himself over Wilson, man.
Right. True.
For me, I don't push for everybody to accept these ideas. And I think that makes it difficult for me, because there is a part of me that's like, hey, you don't have to understand everything when I'm talking to people. And they're like, well, how do you know that you're right? And I'm thinking like, well, you're not even involved in this conversation.
Right. Well, you mentioned some evidence that points toward a different result, and I'll be more than happy to entertain it. But you haven't even gotten to the evidence part yet. So let's not, I do not claim to be right in every situation or not knowledgeable about everything on earth. I claim to know this thing. It's one thing right here because I went through it.
Yeah. The problem that bothers me is that there are people who aren't actually participating in the knowledge game. Why do you have an opinion? You're not even involving yourself in knowledge search or, trying to find it, why do you have an opinion? I don't.
Yes. How would you have an opinion? Why should we entertain it? You have nothing to offer here. Like, you should be listening.
Right. It blows my mind. It's weird because it's funny. There are people who, like, I got reviews for the book, and two of my worst reviews for the book. People, I guess they don't really know. Maybe not everybody knows. A person who is selling a book, they can see, like, if you buy a book and you put up a review, we know that it's a verified purchase review, right? If you use like one of the Kindle programs to read a book in the background, we see the amount of pages that you read. It's like you got a whole take on a whole book. You read one page. Like, I can't take you seriously.
Anyone else? It's like, you have nothing to offer this. You clearly don't know anything about what you're talking about. You didn't want to know. Otherwise, you would have looked.
You didn't want to know. You probably saw something that you didn't like and it made you feel bad. And then you just took all of the feelings that you already had against that thing and you just spit it out again, which I get it,
You're allowed to have an opinion. It just doesn't carry any weight. You don't know anything about what you're saying. You're just saying things because you're like, I don't like it. Like, I believe you. You do not like this. You didn't have to like it, but okay, I believe it.
But the bad thing, that's the majority of what I see now. I don't know if it's been like that. I'm going to assume that it's always been the majority.
Right.
But because of the culture, if I look at cultural things as indicators, ideas were more popular before, like real ideas or good ideas. The idea that Ayn Rand was on Johnny Carson 3 times in 6 months or something like that a year.
Right.
Regardless of what you think about her, it shows you that at least people were entertaining ideas at some level, right? There are people who have ideas, even if they aren't the greatest ideas. But my problem is like, what ideas, even bad ideas get some pub, but they're not getting that much pub to say people really care about ideas. When I think about the idea world, I'm thinking like, I don't know, you could say Elon Musk, but I don't really think Elon Musk is in the idea world like that.
He has some ideas. It's just not all ideas, but yes, all Anyway, continue. Finish up.
No, I'm just thinking about like Jonathan Haidt is one. That's an idea. That makes sense. The rational mind. Cool. I hear people Coleman Hughes, and it's not in any order. Coleman Hughes, okay, I think maybe he has ideas. So, all right, cool. Glenn Lowry, John McWhorter, okay, these people have ideas. Jordan Peterson, yeah, he's got ideas. But I think almost it feels like he dumbed his ideas down and became more palatable, in my opinion. I think that's a great choice to use as an example because so many people know him. Like to me, Sam Harris, I'm not a fan of his ideas, but he has ideas.
He at least communicates very clearly. Like these are things that he thinks are worth discussing, worthwhile, and even true to him. He's like, this is where I'm coming from. I'll take it.
I guess when I'm thinking about ideas, I'm just thinking about something that's different from tactical. Like the Democrats are doing this and we need to do that. That's an idea, but I'm thinking more of something that's more long-term. Like what should we do in life instead of hey, I'm reacting to another person or this temporary experience that we need to overcome right now. Like, okay, so I get it. This is tactical. We're doing this now, but how should we do this forever as a guideline? Those are the kind of ideas that I think about when I'm thinking about ideas. So
it's key. I think it's helpful to know the tactical things, but also even those strategic things to kind of figure out, what's the application of this, and then what's the long-term effects.
Yeah, I guess the thing is, like, I think tactical is great, right? But to me, tactical has to use other ideas for the tactic. You have to use more foundational long-term ideas because it's like you would have to, if you're doing something, you're like let's say you want to fix a financial situation. You still have to use basic fundamental economic principles, some long-lasting things to even apply to your fix. Maybe you're using it in a tactical way, but you have to use a bigger idea to apply. So that's what I mean about that. And I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people do great with the tactical things. Like I see a lot of good things in the tactical pieces. It's just that we're not addressing the bigger picture. We're not doing that part.
There's very little analysis and there's very little principled action where people can use what they've applied in this one situation to a bunch of other ways at all.
Yeah. So that's the part. And every time I think about it, I always just think about, and I might have brought this up before, I just always think about the Titanic, right? And like, I'm pretty sure you saw Titanic, right? Just at some point in time, the ship was going down and the string section just started playing some beautiful music. So it's like a lot of people playing beautiful music on a sinking ship.
Right. And they're okay with it. They're unbothered. Like, this is what we're doing. Why?
In some level, I think, like, to me, that's how life, well, not necessarily life, but society works. And I get that part. But I had this idea of, when I think about even ideas, I'm thinking about a distribution channel. And there's different parts to it's not even distribution channel. What is the channel name? Chain. Supply chain, right? It's different parts to a supply chain. You might have your manufacturer, you may have your merchandiser, you may have your distribution, you may have your packaging, but all of those people play a part into getting the product to the end life-affirming, life-saving, life-giving result or whatever.
Yeah, they're part of the same system.
Right. But to me, they don't necessarily, like the distributors. He's not like, he might be like, look, I don't know what y'all do in the manufacturer. We just come here and pick this stuff up. This is what we do. I think sometimes people get themselves in trouble when they try to take over the whole supply chain and think that their experience is going to tell them everything they need to know about the supply chain. So, and that's one of those ideas that I've been playing around with for a while. And I just don't know that the distributor understands the manufacturer.
Just because they're in the same industry doesn't mean they have the same job. And so they certainly can't have that level of expertise. But I do love it when I see, I'm kind of pivoting here, but like, I do like it when companies get into a space and say, like, I don't have all the answers, but I want to expand to the next level. And therefore, I want to work as the company and work as the smaller business and become the distributor on purpose. I'm gonna study what makes my current distributor work well, work with them to effectively get things together, and then like start the process of expanding, start building a corporation. Like I like the fact that corporations can exist. That to me is very encouraging because that means there's always somewhere else to go, somewhere else to build.
True. I give you that. I just, the reason I brought it up is because I think that there are people who, once again, some people think the tactical is everything. Some people think the strategic is everything. Neither is true, right? So it's just like some people think that the empirical is everything. Some people think that the rational is everything, or the nominal. I keep forgetting the mixes. But the point of it is neither one of these positions are true.
No, these are false dichotomies. 100%.
Good. So I guess when I try to approach almost every situation with respect to the elements,
nice.
Which is even difficult. I recognize that that's still difficult though, because I'm still going to have a perspective.
Yeah. It has to exist and no one has all the answers. So there's no possible way for you to come at something with all the context needed to be able to say, I have absolute knowledge here. I'm not going to make a mistake. It's like, no, you're going to have to make a mistake to learn. That's how learning works. We expect you to fail here, but you can take a small measured risk. You can calculate your risk and take that next step. And so your failure can be something you learn from instead of are destroyed by. It's an option.
Yes. So I think I was getting ready to go in another direction with it. So it's more of it's the argument that we talk about from a TETI standpoint a lot of times. It's hey, I would like to have a conversation about this with you. And I know I don't know everything. And I have respect for you. And then, oh, wow, you don't have respect for my position. You are a great distributor. And you think because you're a great distributor, you can tell people, you think, oh, I'm running a company, so I'm going to tell the manufacturer how to run the company. I'm going to tell the merchandise how to run the company. It's like, because I run companies, like you run a distribution company, and you may have good ideas.
That's different.
You may, but and that's the thing that bothers me. It's like, look, man, I'm willing to work with a lot of people.
Right.
Because that's the benefit. That's the whole benefit. Like you get to do your thing because you do it better than I do it. And I'm one of those people who's like, nah, man, you do that better. And I think there's not a lot of people, there's some, but a lot of people don't have that view on things like, oh no, if I don't take a position, then people will think I'm weak, or people will think that I can't do it.
Or people will fail. Like it's hard to trust people, and people don't always have the criteria they need to know who to trust.
Yes, but I guess when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about those specific examples. There are people who I know who won't say that they don't know how to do something.
Right.
I've seen this before because for them, even like Trump almost in a sense gives me that vibe like, no, I know this and I know that. No, clearly you don't. You don't have to say that you know everything.
Would already be here, but clearly this is not happening.
But it's like, no, and I get it. They don't want to project an image of weakness.
Right.
I get it. To me, and here's the eggshells or the fine line that you have to walk on. Saying you don't know without giving the impression of, that you can't do the job. And actually I had a friend of mine, she's a doctor. She's like, yo, this is part of the doctor training. Like you can't just go in there and just say, yeah, I kind of think that this thing is happening with you, but I'm not too sure, but it's kind of, you got to present like if I go to the doctor and he's like, man, you could have cancer, but I'm not really sure. It could be just a toenail or something, but we got
just something important, but it's probably not. I mean, like nigga, it's your job. This is why we come here.
Right. So even and this might be times where you might, I wouldn't say lying, you might not be lying, but you just not letting.
Yeah.
No, you go ahead, man. You know more than I know.
You give people what you have. You don't have to lie to people in order to appear confident. You can just say that, these are the boundaries of what we have to offer you. And therefore, like, of the things we have to offer you, these are the things and these are the next steps. I see you have these symptoms. All right, these are these studies we're going to use to work this up. And then we're going to offer you these solutions to help manage some of these symptoms. Like that's, even if we don't know everything, we know these parts, and these are the parts we're going to offer you. I think that's a much different conversation than saying, I'm the bastion of all knowledge. I will let you know all things. I will cure all diseases. Like, we don't have that. I don't have a liver machine. I don't have a brain machine. We're not doing that. You came here with a lot of pain that doesn't allow you to play tennis like you used to play. Okay, fair. We're going to work this up, see if there's something that we can cure. But for most parts, we don't have cures. So we're gonna manage this and make sure you have the pain medicine and the muscle relaxers and the physical therapy you need to get back to doing what you want to do, which is a different conversation. So I don't have to have all knowledge. There are other people for that.
I agree with you, right? But I think some people take what you just did and turn it into the God complex, especially in like medicine.
Yep,
you know?
You're right.
It's like people have to believe in me, and therefore, I don't know what it is. I'm kind of working with images from like the movie Malice, and then, or some people who have that, I don't know, that mentality. Maybe they do have doubts, but it's almost like that fanaticism piece, right?
Yeah. I mean, some people look at confidence as a substitute for substance, and it's common. I mean, confidence can get you really far, and it's really helpful to have confidence. But, eventually you will run up against reality, and then the substance will matter. It's one of the things where people just live in denial, and they're like, if I can just project the confidence and make people feel better, then the situation is better, because we all feel differently now. And I'm like, yes, you solved the internal conflict, but the external part never got addressed.
That just reminds me of something I was writing about in the book. And I'll use the story. It's like this doctor. It's a doctor, Dr. Smith. I think that's his name. And he's more or less everything rational. I don't consider anything unless there's objective proof for it. I don't even accept subjective art or anything like that, because, everything has to have rational proof, outside proof to it. And then I start talking about how like Jung talks about fanaticism or overcompensated doubt. And it's just this, and he's saying that there are people who present, like you're saying, this external confidence where internally the doubt eats them up, but from a subconscious perspective, like it like affects them in a weird way. Like they just ignoring their insides in a sense. So he'll say that they'll have certain kinds of dreams or something that, will create more doubt in their mind because they're trying to repress the possibility that they're wrong or something, or that there's some other emotional need that they're trying to repress or something like that. And it's like, because I think people know, but repressed anything comes back bad always.
Yes. Yes. Like, I neglected this problem for long periods of time, and now it's better? No, it's much worse. What are you talking about? Yeah. You can only go one way with that. If you leave a rotting fruit in the fridge, you come back later, it's like, I repressed it, it'll be okay. No, your fridge is messed up now. A lot of rotting stuff there. Well, I didn't open the door, so it can't be bad. You didn't open the door. It has to be bad. That's what neglecting a problem does. It only allows the problem to fester.
It's one of those things with humans that I think is so common that we've accepted it as normal. And I don't think that that's a good thing. But people try to repress things. And being a person, I guess I'll use a personal example. The odd part for me is that people will say, oh man, you think everything is logical. You think everything is rational. And I would say to them, I'm going to say, I am not repressing anything. Like, if I have an emotion, I have no problems with expressing that emotion. It's just that me expressing emotion is different than it would be for you, right? And that part is shocking to some people, but I'm like, I'm not doing anything extra here. This is just how I naturally came out the box. So I don't know. Some people would just be like, man, you're just so cold. No, I just don't. I need to know what it means. I need to make logic of the situation. Doesn't mean I'm not going to be upset about a situation. I just need to know. I need to know. I don't want to believe. I don't want to feel. I I'd rather know first.
I think that when people say that, oh, you're just so cold, I think you are just bad at understanding where I'm coming from. Like you can't empathize with me because you can't get out of your own biased perspective,
Right.
which is hard to do. I'm not saying it's easy, but when people play the game of this is a one-sided issue, and if you were just better, you wouldn't have this problem. I'm like, I don't think that's where we're coming from. That may not be accurate representation of the situation. You don't listen to what I'm saying, and like it matters to me how these things make sense. If it doesn't make sense in my mind, then I cannot process it appropriately. If emotions are just value judgments, then I'm going to need some sort of substrate, some sort of information to judge this or measure up or align with my values in some way. And you're like, oh, you're just super cold. I'm like, you just didn't pay attention to any of my values. How this affected it? My values were affected. It wasn't affected in a way I could understand enough to express in a way that you could understand, which is something you could ask. Like there is room for curiosity, but instead of curiosity, most the time I just get rejection. So it's like, this is less helpful as a long-term discussion.
Yeah, as you were talking, it just reminded me that there are times when I can't feel an emotion until I actually understand what the hell is going on. And people are like, well, don't you feel bad about that? I'm like, what happened? I needed an idea for the emotion to do its thing.
Right. Doesn't work without context. I don't have any context yet.
So I think a lot of people just reflexive, and I get that. Look, you may have associated with a look on someone's face or a situation with a certain emotion or a need to fix the conversation or fix the situation. But for me, if there's no
there's no meaning, I can't have a judgment about this.
I don't feel anything. You're like, well, no, but this is what happened. Oh, okay, I get it now. Now I feel, and that'll drive people crazy because they just think like, I'm sad. You should be sad for me.
Right? This is a sad situation. No, I hear that you judge it as a sad situation, but I don't have the same value system, so I didn't make the same value judgment. But I hear you though. You judge this that way. I can receive that information, but I can't process it the same way. We're not the same person.
Even with that, but when I'm thinking about a situation where, let's say you're having a conversation with somebody, let's say it's your girl or your wife or whatever, and it's like, let's say that your girl or wife isn't very good with words or communication or doesn't value words. Like some people were just like, you should just get what I mean without actually articulating themselves. And as they're talking, they're visibly upset. I mean, I can see that you're upset. And then as they're talking, somehow they slip. They actually say something that explains what the hell is going on with them. And it's like, oh, I get it now. You're upset because of blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not going to say this part, but I'm just like, you didn't articulate yourself well, and I had no idea what the problem was.
You didn't say any of these contexts. That was super necessary to know where you're coming from.
Oh, I get it now. So I understand why you're upset, and now I can have an emotion.
Right.
But before, I didn't know what we were doing. And I guess people find that to be cold. I'm sorry. I don't care. I'm just using words in the right way. I'm attempting to use words in the right way.
Using words to the best of my ability. If you would like to do so too, great. But if you just want to be mysteriously understood on a gut level, I'm like, oh, I'm not your person for that. You should certainly find someone who just has gone through what you've gone through or just gets it like you get it. But we can't start with that premise. I don't have your life. I don't have your values. We can't have these nonverbals in a way that's going to be relevant. You're going to need to use your words.
And that in itself to me, and I think Barbara Brandon or Ryan or Nathaniel Brandon talked about this before. The whole idea of words is an amazing idea in itself. Because at their core, they're really just sounds, right?
Right.
At some point in time, we started to take these sounds and structure them in a way to
different meanings,
communicate meaning. right? Where they came from, just think of like a monkey screaming, and maybe there might be different kinds of monkey screams, but you might be able to understand, but you are limited by these screams. You gotta scream in different, you gotta do different things. You gotta use different parts of your palate, your mouth, your teeth, your tongue. Like even the way the consonants and the vowels work, and it's just like, man, this structure. Sometimes I'm in awe of the things that we have created as humans. I'm like, oh man, I can not skip all of these steps, but I know how to do something that the caveman couldn't have done because somebody just embedded these steps in society that just lets me skip the line.
Yeah, and build on other people's discoveries, which is huge. Like as humans, this is what allows us to level up. And I think that's incredible that these opportunities are available to us every day, all the time.
So that's great, right? So what you said, what you said is great. And I'm gonna try to hold this thought as much as I can. Because we're in the tech, well, it's not the tech, it's been the tech age in a sense for me, right? But I think in my mind, fundamentally, the explosion of apps, people don't really just look at this like, hey, these are preloaded steps. Basically, that's all they are. That's why the apps, as we go on and on, it's like, hey, I've got this code that references this code that was built over time. Now all I have to do is this, and this, and we can do a million steps that we would have had to done before. This is the same thing that we're trying to do with the ideas and carry them forward. Now, there's some issues with that, but the point of it is, those who like to destroy meaning and destroy words and destroy concepts, you use apps. You understand the process. You know that we are simplifying things. But yet, oh man, we don't need a name for a man. We don't need a name for a woman. These things don't have, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. We've used these things for tools. And you're trying to get rid of the tools. For what reason? What new capability is unlocked by getting rid of the tools?
How are we being held? What is the benefit? It's like, well, these boxes were too limiting, and they didn't allow us to effectively navigate society so that we can all have the same opportunities. Like, regarding what? Doing every single thing the same. Oh, yeah, it doesn't allow us to do that. You know what else do that? Reality. Some of these are social constructs, because we did use the social portion to like name them, but the names didn't change reality. Right. The names just referred to reality. No matter how many times we changed the names, the reality part didn't change.
But that's the opposite view of the world, man. There are people who think that their feelings, notions, and issues, they change. I guess that's the Kantian view of life that Ryan talks about.
Yeah.
Collective delusion. Like, hey, these things aren't really real, but they only exist because we all believe they exist. We can't escape these things because we all are stuck in a collective delusion, which is, wow. I don't want to talk about that.
It's not even close to how society works, cognition works, metacognition, or just physics. Like if we made people back these statements up with evidence, there would be nothing for them to stand on.
Well, see, here's the thing though, Josh, and I think I made this point in the book too. It's like Kant and people like Kant don't give you anything to refute. There's nothing to refute because I don't disagree with them. So like people who say, oh man, you don't have any power over your life. The things that you've encountered limit and frame the way that you think about the world. And I'm thinking like,
yeah, that's true.
But so what? But
they limit how you think about the world. In fact, they limit how you could even ask the question. How is that relevant?
And that's true, what I mean. That's what I mean. It's useless. It's useless to even have the conversation. It's the deterministic mentality. It's like, hey, you have no free will. You don't have any choice of how tall you were going to be, what situations you came through in life. And that's
like free will doesn't exist. You're right. Absolute free will does not exist. I'm so happy we weren't talking about that. Let's talk about the choices we do have. You could either murder somebody or not. That is a level of will we do have.
Right.
I'd recommend you not do these things because otherwise, consequences. But you're right. You do have the free will to do that. You are able to do it. No one is forcing you to make this decision or not. There will be consequences, though.
Yeah. So, yeah, man. But I think some people just take the position like because it has no relationship to meaning or consequences of choice, then it's wrong. And I don't necessarily think it's wrong. I just think it's besides the point. You know what I'm saying?
We've made another error in our reasoning. We're like, you skipped over the part that matters. Yes, there are a lot of things that are possible, but some things are not beneficial. And there are some things that aren't even possible, but we're still talking about them for some reason.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about this part. It's like, I can't make myself taller. I can't make that person over there do what I want. I'm like, no, you never could. Why was that even brought up? Why are we having this part of the conversation? Like, it's cool to learn things, but this wasn't inside your brain thought. This wasn't like a thing you should say out loud. We should all know that the things that we can't do, that we still can't do. That part didn't change, and it didn't change by saying it. So you should have realized this before you said it.
Yeah, but that's the human.
That also does something. I did not know that was a mode of thinking. I really thought that was surprising. Like you didn't know this before you said it out loud? No, I just say things. So the words you say aren't communicating solutions or conclusions? Nope. I just thought a thing one time and then I said it. I'm like, oh, that's really dangerous. What if you had said something important that like was going to be used poorly by like people who don't like you? Do you know about the people who don't like you? They exist. Anyway, I just find that amazing that people process things externally that way.
Yeah. From what I gather from the work that I've surveyed, researched, wrote about, I feel like that's where we're coming from. I think that's the basic, primitive, primal thinking process.
It is super common. That's all I'm saying. I just had no idea. It blew my mind. I'm like, no, I refuse to believe that people do this. And someone did it in front of me, and I'm just like, I changed my mind. If people do this, apparently this is real, and I need to now be aware that at any point in time, somebody's mind vomit can become their word vomit. And I'm just going to have to be like, all right, so you're processing this right now in real time. Let's gear this toward evidence. Is there something you noticed that made you think about this? It's crazy.
This is why we need to get better. Well, I don't like using words like need. It would be good for us to get better, especially educating people, because it creates so much confusion to be, I guess, dogmatic about this. Because the answer is neither one of the things that we just talked about. The answer is you're doing both. The answer is that, yeah, there are times where you just do a word association or whatever, and you may say a thing. If you repress that part of you, then that's detrimental as well.
Right.
So it's good to just make associations sometimes. But it's also good to know how to apply these associations and give them some framework and some guidance with some rational, principles, concepts. So both things are good, but when we just look at if you were to take either one and say, no, this is the only thing, that would be bad. Right?
Right. It doesn't apply to all situations. So yeah, that would be a terrible way to approach it. Like, we could only do this one thing. I'm like, this one thing only works in context over here. It's like, we can only do this one thing. I'm like, well, we're going to miss a lot of things then.
Yeah. Because to me, I almost look at emotions, subconscious, and concepts is like the barrel of a gun. Emotional, subconscious is like the explosion and the propulsion through the barrel.
But that's the key part, though. Like, at least you keep things in their appropriate order. Because sometimes people get things out of sequence and then they just say craziness like, well, I had a feeling. This feeling was so overwhelming. I just had to do something about it. Like, so you went back and analyzed where it came from and rectified your feeling? Nope, didn't do that. I went ahead and just had the first thought that came to mind. I just did that. I just did that thing. I'm like, oh, how did that work for you? I ended up in jail, so not great. So there were other options, right? You know that all your life you had chosen not to do that. You could still not do that today. Anyway.
That's true. So that's a negative way it pops out, right?
Right. There are choices that are detrimental. Sometimes they're positive, though. Like, you could have external process and do brainstorming. Like, and that's not just, or you can go and you can like have a time where you're wandering through the forest and you're on your hiking path. And you're like, I just want to see where this other path goes. You can probably find a lot of really cool things when you discover things that way. Like, there are guardrails to put up that are reasonable.
But that's my point, though. We're not teaching and communicating in that manner. We're not saying that, hey, Like, even if I look at Rand, right? Everything was rational, concept. I get it, but I don't know that I think that there was enough attention. Maybe I need to maybe do some more research about sense of life. I'm not necessarily sure, but we're all saying the same thing over and over again. We're all doing both. We're always all doing both. Yeah. And that's why I like Jung's framework, because to me, he gives me a framework to talk about both in almost an equal manner. It's the whole idea of like, yo, all of these things are important, and let's address it holistically. That's what my point is. And I don't think that I've seen or heard people say that like that.
Right. People make it one or the other. They make this false dichotomy, and they always ignore something. But yes, people don't effectively put things in the order that they're supposed to be, and they say, instead of saying my gut or just contemplative thought, like they don't just say my mind needs to be united with my actions, and these all have to be based off of a foundation of reason. I think that's one thing Ayn did beautifully, is that she made it real clear that if you could use your perceptions to understand the concretes, you could put enough concretes together to say there is a principle here I can follow. If I use this principle to inform my action, then my thoughts can lead to an action that leads to a desirable result. Over and over and over again, this is the process we're supposed to use to have integrity. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Integrity. There is a way we could learn this skill. We could get better at this.
Yeah. But as you just said, as you rightfully said, not everybody operates like that. Like, I know a specific woman that I know. This person would take specific positions on like racism or Black people's rights. It's almost like a leftist. She doesn't claim herself to be a leftist, but she's a central left person.
Right.
But I think she has a lot of left-leaning ideas, whatever. So I introduced this person to this person she's white. So she's like, has a lot of ideas about Black people and has been around Black people, but it's just not, not all Black. We're not a monolith. It's like, we're not all the same. So, and she's like, has these positions, popular positions in the political world. So I show her stuff like Tom Sowell or something like Tom Sowell was specific. It's like, hey, see this idea, see this concept, see what he's talking about. Like, this relates to this, and this. And she's like, okay, I understand what he's saying. And then the conversation goes again, and she gets to the point, and I'm like, well, you still hold the same positions. You
new information now.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, she has the same positions with the new information that she said she understood. But you didn't do anything. Like, you didn't, integrate your knowledge. And she's like, but what am I supposed to do? You're supposed to operate on the new knowledge, integrate this knowledge. And she just could not understand. She's like, but what am I supposed to do? Yeah, I saw it. I understood it, but it doesn't mean that I agree with it.
Ding, ding, ding. It's like, I don't trust this person. I'm like, you can get to a point where you trust them. But if you understood what he was saying, then the things he said should have related to the experiences you have. You've not had any of the experiences. That's a different conversation. And you can just say that. You're like, I get where he's coming from, but I don't relate. I'm like, okay, well, you need to get evidence of your own. Cool. Do some research. That's fine. We can have this conversation later.
But that's not the goal. This is not their goal. Knowledge is not their goal.
They don't have that at all. That is certainly, anyway, I am only saying it how I would approach it. I'm very clear that has not been the trend or the common response.
It's so, as I told you last week, I'm listening to this book. I'm almost done. The Goddess of the Right, or I think the Goddess of the Market. It's like the biography of Ayn Rand. And this was one of the things. She's getting to the latter parts, and she's like, Rand misunderstood or was confused that because somebody understood her arguments, that they agreed with her arguments, right? And the interesting thing is like, and I'm just witnessing in the conversation that we just had, and I'm me recounting these things, like, I probably do this too. And I know somebody has told me that this is not a thing. And I'm thinking like, no, because their goal is not knowledge. My goal is knowledge. My goal is to know and understand. If I understand and I'm trying to do something, I'm thinking about it, I'm integrating my knowledge once I understand. The reason why they can hold contradictions is because they don't care.
It's not valuable to them.
Wow.
Right?
Blows my mind.
I do not need a complex. It's funny to hear people say or live out a way that where it's like it does not matter for their ideas to be integrated. They don't need their model of the world to make sense or to agree with anything. They're just like, nope, this is a model I pick up sometimes and I put it down. This is a model I pick up sometimes and I put it down. I'm like, but those aren't in line with reality. How do you rectify that? Oh, I do not. I just pick up things and I use them and I put them down. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. The end.
Yeah.
Like, you're never going to get better. Well, I don't want to get better.
No.
I want to do what everybody else is doing and use the model that's working for them. We're all going to use this model that works or the model that doesn't work. We're all just going to use it because you know what? We're all going to understand where each other is coming from. And as long as I have the mass of humanity around me, I'll feel safe. But you won't be safe, but I'll feel it. All right. That is your experience on Earth. Fine. You can feel a certain way if you like, at the expense of actual knowledge and outcomes and benefits. But okay, it's a different value set, man.
Go ahead.
That's it. I can't. It's hard for me to think about and talk about in a way that is unbiased or, all I have are negative things to say about it. It's like, come on.
Here's the thing, man. I think I don't have that perspective. I don't think, right? Good. I think my perspective is, if you ever seen the Muppets Take Manhattan, and Pete would just be like, "Peoples is peoples." It's
true. But anyway, because they are people, that means I can't pretend that we are the same. I can't trust what they say like I trust what I say. I can't consider the things that they're doing to be judged on the standard of being the most beneficial things possible. I'm like, okay.
But okay, what I would say to you is that there are two types of things, I would say. One thing that doesn't matter and one thing that does. For the things that don't matter, that's your fault. If you get upset about something that doesn't matter to you, that's your fault. And that would be my fault, But right. As we're talking, I'm thinking about how these weird and invalid means or concepts or ideas can affect me. And I just think about like from a man's standpoint, like even look at the concept of, I don't know, can you say the R word?
You can use the explanation of it. That's
an assault, a sexual assault, right? There are people who I've met. So I'll use my experience as an experience. As an example. I've met a woman before who actually felt it was her responsibility or duty to sit and talk to a man who buys her a drink at the bar. And this concept leads me to the concept of some people, maybe women in general, may feel a duty or responsibility to go home with somebody or even to have sex with somebody.
Right, reciprocity exists.
And the point I'm trying to get to is that a person can make a decision and an action and then claim that I was coerced. And if we don't have this whole specific, hey, you make decisions and this is coercion and this is not coercion, then you're putting a lot of people in bad situations where somebody's making a choice and the other person is just going along for the ride. And then they're just like, hey, I went for that ride, but I didn't like it. So now I want somebody to pay for that ride that I don't think that I liked before.
Yep.
So
that's what that describes gosh, not cancel culture, but all the oversensitivity that we have today. That is a perfect way to describe it.
In what sense? Like, you mean the oversensitivity?
The idea that I heard a bad thing said about someone sometime, and therefore I felt a certain kind of way because I thought someone else would feel a certain kind of way. And because of that, this person who said this thing that I interpreted as terrible, this person is bad. And I don't want to feel bad. Therefore, they have committed violence against me. I feel it. I feel the same way you would if you had committed violence against me, and therefore violence has been committed. It's not your intent that matters. It's how I receive it, interpret it, and experience it.
Okay.
I'm like, oh no, it's not true at all. It does matter someone's intent, and it does matter what they actually do. I just don't equate the two. They're not the same. They do exist. They're just not the same.
True. But in the kind of culture that we have, we'll never reconcile this difference.
Well, we don't. The people with power aren't holding a strong standard and holding people accountable for their decisions. And because of that, then we can't rectify it, because the people whose job it is to rectify it aren't maintaining order. Like that's the purpose of societal norms and strong influential leadership. I'm like, we don't have that, so we're not gonna get it.
Once again, though, we come down to, like, I'm fundamentals. I'm a fundamental, the baby step piece.
Yes.
Yeah, they're not holding people accountable for decisions. But do we as a culture, are we bought in on decision making? That's what I mean about, see, like this, like the content thing coming up again. It's like, right. Do we have free will, or is it just this fuzzy thing, like, you know, or some people making judgments? Oh, these people over here, they can't make judgments. We do that with children that's below a certain age.
Right.
We do that with people who may have certain mental incapacity or whatever.
Right.
But am I supposed to just say, we have not raised a regular person to become a good wielder of judgment? So now I can't in good faith interact with you, because there's no, I'm making judgments, you're making judgments, and we're both equal adults here. There's me doing stuff and saying stuff, and you're like, either I'm going to go along or I'm not going to go along. And if you don't like the outcome, then it's like, well, something's been done to me. Because, you know, and that's just weird.
Don't think critically. If they don't think critically, then we're not two equals on the same ground here. Anyway, we're not two equals at all. And because of that, we technically don't have the same, I don't want to say choices, because that's not true, but we don't perceive the same choices, I'll say. And then we do have this quote unquote confusion.
They don't perceive choice.
There you go.
That's why in the book, one of the themes is choice defines perspective. If you're a determinist, if you think that, you know, people don't have free will, you see a whole different world than I see. My whole world is determined by choice and free will. That's the whole thing. That's
the point. That's the actual part that moves the world. That is the part of being human.
It's the whole thing at its core.
Mm-hmm.
So with that confusion right there, man, that to me is why I like to talk about fundamentals. Because how can we fix something if we don't even have the foundation set? Hey, judgment and choice is a thing.
Yeah, and important. And if you don't represent it, or if you don't effectively demonstrate the ability to use your judgment, use your choice, agree with, you know, the reality of those definitions in a way that is beneficial, then we aren't on the same page. We aren't talking about the same thing. We aren't even on the same quote unquote team. Like we may be working against each other, like at this point.
But that's true. It's just like, I don't know. Think about people who were like, all right, quote unquote, I'm going to pull up my own bootstraps and do this, you know. And then there are other people like, man, that's dumb. Nobody lives like that. And I guess my whole point with this is that all of your options require me to do something that you want me to do that I don't want to do. And my options is that, hey, we could just agree to disagree and you can leave me alone. One of these things is not like the other, fundamentally not like the other. I think if you pull the wool off of that and just say, hey, yo, people think that you owe them something. That's what their whole position is. Other people owe us stuff. And therefore, we have a right to take it from you when we want it.
Period.
That's at the root of that mentality. Because it's one thing for you to say, hey, look, I disagree with you, but you know, I don't want anything from you, and I don't want you to take anything from me, and we just agree to disagree. That's it. And it's another thing to say, hey, no, you're wrong, and give me that. Because
that's true.
So, and that's why to me self-defense is a major thing. And that's why I talk about self-defense a lot, because ridiculous people, all of this swirls all together, but and I'm trying not to mix the lines too much, but ridiculous people get involved in politics. These are the policies that come up about the man, this is bad. Basically, because I'm getting confused. My lines are getting crossed. The interconnection between like the conservative and or the Republican or right, left, whatever you want to call it, is the whole altruist. It's the altruist premise because these are both collective premises. One group has a different take on altruism. The other group has another take on altruism, but still altruist principles at the end of the day. And it's just these things can't be circumvented. If people feel like, oh yeah, we can take over the country and we're going to do this with the tax dollars, and it's like, how do you just automatically get to
Right? Skip all the other steps.
It's like,
where do these taxes come from? Who's making this money? How can you tax anyway? Yeah.
They don't care about that, Josh. They don't even care. They're like, people have been in power before and they did stuff with tax dollars. Therefore, we want to get in there and do this with tax dollars. They don't even ask the question, are tax dollars bad? But the other side is just as much to blame because you've done the tax dollar thing. It's like,
right.
You set the course. And now you're getting mad that somebody else wants to do something with the funds?
Right.
No, you started this. Or not started it, but you know what I mean. You're complicit.
You were complicit, 100%. There you go.
It's a thing that I hate. I mean, it helps to talk about it because it helps articulate the point. But on the fly, it's like it always comes back because I'm just a fundamental person. I always try to get to the bottom ideas. And the bottom ideas, like I said, they're transferable. You can transfer value exchange. All of this stuff is value exchange. And do I have a right to independence or just somebody that you can come and take from anytime that you need? These are fundamental questions.
Yes. What does respect for human beings mean? What does morality mean? I think it's just, if you can define that and get people to agree to that premise in the beginning, then it makes a lot of other conversations very clear. Like, are you violating the principle of autonomy or not? Are you violating the principle of value exchange or not? Are you violating the principle of general human respect? I think that's just, if you can agree with that premise, if you can get them to agree with that at the outset, then when they come up with ridiculous applications, you're like, so I hear you're looking for a solution. Does that solution violate one of these principles?
It sounds so easy, huh?
And if so, can you call yourself a good person? How can you be a good person and steal? How can you be a good person and encourage slavery? How can you be a good person and encourage theft? What part of this thing what part of this method that you've chosen, this tactic that you are focused on, is in alignment with your expressed values?
Right.
Principle.
But when you can hold contradictions, it's very easy to just
skip right over it.
Yeah.
Yep.
You don't have to worry about it. And I just have no, what's the word? It's not hope. It's not belief. It's expectation. I have no expectation that people are going to stop holding contradictions before I die. And I mean, not people, all people, just like that being the cultural norm. I just think I don't want the
norm to change. I just need the people in power to change. I need them to hold specific convictions that allow them to see this person's specific tactic or action violates inherent principles that we agreed to as a society that we were going to protect. These are my rights. They have been violated. You need to protect these things. Whether or not you think it's popular or not, whether or not it's convenient for people or not, whether or not it helps someone, immediately or not. If my rights are violated, you are supposed to stand up for this if you want this position of leadership. And that's what I want our leaders to start talking about. They having firm convictions about really clear principles of morality.
Yeah, man. But that's why I talk about leaders, because leaders change the whole picture and
the whole thing.
It's so funny to talk about the principle of individuality and then say leaders change the whole picture.
It's where it starts. That's the principle. The principle is autonomy. The principle of rights is this. And therefore, if a leader stands up and says, I'm going to bring people together to make sure we defend autonomy, then I'm like, all right, see, there we go. This is what the leadership is for. This is what human strength is for, to promote the values and principles that lead to the lead to the flourishing that is only possible when each individual is allowed to have the ability to reap the rewards for their own choices, to benefit from their own work, and then use that for their own means, values, basically.
Absolutely. This is why, as I'll go through like the work things that I'm thinking about, I think people inherently thought like monarchies were bad, and I'm not so sure that I believe that all the time, right?
Yes, I'm having this problem right now trying to make sense of this in my mind. I'm like, is it the problem that is the way the government set up the problem, or is it instead the principles the government operates by?
I think it's the latter.
Right? So
The
like
thing,
a little bit of both. And I'm like, but it's most of the principles, right? If everyone was doing the right thing in the right way, I wouldn't mind if we elected them, or if they were just like, I have the most strength, so I'm just going to do the right thing because I have all the resources. I'm like, I guess we're just going to do the right thing. Just let them do the right thing.
but that to me is like, so if you look at history, you either got a good king or you got a bad king. You know,
Right.
I think it could have very well have been good kings, and I think there's evidence that there were good kings, right? And I also think that that's kind of the whole idea of nobility. In a sense, I think you're raising people to have a certain awareness of things, and I don't think it's ever going to be perfect, right? Because you definitely going to raise one, but they're going to be spoiled apple kings, or
but also like everybody has strengths and weaknesses. Some people are going to be good in one area and be bad in another, and I think that's unavoidable. I'm just trying to find people who can agree on some of the main things and get some of the main strengths in there. Like, it'd be great if you could stand up for some of the things that are going to keep society going. And then some of like the extra bias stuff, like, oh, I like cheese versus, tomato on the sandwich. I'm like, you know what? Maybe we talk about this part. You let the people work on their own people things. But like the moral principles, it's like, I either want to steal or I want to work. I'm like, no, we're all going to have to work. I'm going to need everyone to be on the same page.
I mean,
That's just going to have to be wrong for everybody at every level all the time. All right.
But this is my point with force, though, because at the end of the day, whenever you're saying that, how do you make anybody have to? There has to be some element of force.
Yes.
And that to me warrants a conversation of what is the proper use of force. Like, there are things to me that I like to swim in the blue oceans. Well, I guess that's a marketing term, right? Like, everybody talks about certain things in philosophy or politics or just philosophical conversation, whatever. And like, for me, I think people just avoid certain topics. To me, that's just like, wait a minute, how can you avoid? How can I go to a conference or be around people who are individualists and y'all don't talk about relationships or families like that much? Like, to me, that's like, oh, wait a minute, this is a big problem. This is an issue. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that you gotta be a collectivist or altruist to have a relationship. I'm just saying, like, what is the individualist approach to having relationships? Right. But even when it comes to that, when I'm talking about force, I'm like, wait a minute. All of this, somebody has to do something. This is all force at the end of the day. Like, police come to your house and force you into a car, then force you into a cell.
Yep. The executive branch and the army exist for a reason. If we desire order, this is how we get order. Order comes from strength, and that strength has to be used in these ways to force people to obey these rules. These rules don't have to micromanage your every breath, but they do need to stand up for specific principles that make collaboration possible. And I think that is something that gets ignored, gets skipped over. People don't prioritize effectively to say, what are the guardrails that we have to have in place if we want to drive on this road?
I think some people think it's a barbaric conversation. It's like, we don't want to talk about force because that's
uncivilized.
Yes, it's uncivilized. But it's like, we have to talk about these things. Like, because if we don't talk about these things, we're going to use them poorly or in an ineffective way.
Yeah. But force is the foundation. If you don't build a foundation, then you can't be surprised that your stuff keeps falling over. And it's very, very rickety. I'm like, a lot of people's arguments and systems don't work very effectively because we ignore the foundation of it takes strength to both gain this, to build this, to maintain it, and to make it better. And when people are like, I want to improve this problem, I'm like, excellent, you're going to need force for that. And they're like, why would you bring that up now? Like, you said you wanted to make this better. We only got here because you could force this to happen.
Look at the word make.
Right? You're going to need some sort of element of strength to be able to do this. You're going to need strength to procure the resources, strength to process them, strength to build them into something better. You said better, right? So you're going to want to be able to use the things to make something different than what we already have. The way we got what we had was by using the force. Why would you ignore the force?
Well, and here's here's a scary piece. The person who avoids the force conversation is in my reflexive, my mind intuition is like, this is probably the person that's going to be most likely to use force.
Yes.
This is you're ignoring it. The examples that I think of, I think one was coming from I'll use a real life example first, and then I'll use another. Like, I think I might have brought this up before, like the Tale of Two Bobs, I think. It was a documentary about Bob Marley. And it was this political race. I think it was in the 70s, whatever, 60s, 70s. These politicians was contracting gangs.
About right. There you go.
Like real live gangs. They having shootouts. Like these two people in the winning office. And one of the gangs, they said, came over to America and became the Jamaican shower posse at some point. And the reason why they call them shower posse is because they rain bullets. But the second one is just this. It's like at the beginning of 48 Laws of Power. And oh man, it's like, man, I need to pull it back up. It's like you're feigning something. I'm gonna find it. But those are the two things that pop up in my mind when I think about it.
I think that's right. Politics is just using social force to influence physical force. And I find that to be a helpful framework when people discuss like why your vote matters or what's going on. I'm like, oh, because the army exists and they can do things to you. So you'll want to have a say in that. If you could, it'd be helpful just to let the people who have the army know that like you don't like it when they take your stuff. Sometimes during the part where they're campaigning, they'll listen to you. But after they get their position, then they're not going to listen to you because like they don't need you anymore. There will come a time when they'll be elected again and then they will listen to you again. But like you'll want to maximize that time when they're campaigning.
But politics and government is all about force.
It's all about force.
That's the whole.
And like they can ignore it. Like, oh, I don't listen to that. I don't look at that. I don't pay attention to those things. That just depresses me. I'm like, it may depress you. And there are good reasons to be depressed about it. But let's not pretend like it doesn't involve you. I think that's the part that I get a little bit miffed by when people are just like, we can operate without it. Let's have anarchy. Like, you misunderstand what we're doing here. You don't get it. People exist. People exist who are not you. And some of those people who are not you are stronger than you. So if we have anarchy, you've just chosen to give your stuff away. Like, it's the same thing when we talk about preparing for the end of the world. They're like, I'm going to make a bunker. It's going to have all my stuff in it. Or I'm going to buy all the gold in the world and be ready for the apocalypse. I'm like, you misunderstand. If the government goes away and the apocalypse happens and this end of the world, and order goes away, safety goes away. So you holding a bunch of gold in your hand is not going to save you.
I hope you got some guns too. That's what I'm pretty much saying. And a lot of bullets.
Right? Hopefully you understand basics and you hire a lot of someone's with guns and bullets to stand around you and your goal. Otherwise, you and your gold won't be here anymore. Anyway, I've had a lot of conversations with doomsdayers and people who are just like, I'm just going to get on a farm and I'm going to stash all these things and it'll be fine. I'm like, that's not how disorder works. If you went back to how human society works, people who had stuff didn't keep it unless they were able to fight off everybody else who wanted stuff or trade with them. Like, you could trade with enough people where you could hire them. And again, trade value for value to where you hire enough people who protect you. And this is the purpose of the police and the army. if you don't enforce the government, if you don't put effort behind the rule you want to have, then you won't have the order that you so crave, that your stuff depends on.
Yeah. Yes. But fortunately or unfortunately, here's the thing. The government is a racket. So
Yes.
even the people who want to destroy the racket, actually, I don't even think anybody rational wants to destroy the racket. They just want power of the racket.
There you
know
go.
what I'm saying? So they're like, why would we go to anarchy when all I have to do is win this election? Well, depending on if you can corrupt the whole thing. If you can corrupt the thing, it's like, well, I can just do. And some people may think Trump is doing it. I'm pretty sure that some people truly believe that Trump is doing it. Right. So, but then you've already got the power built in. And why would I want anarchy power when I can have big government power?
Right? They've already built all these things. Why would I get rid of all this? I'd have to rebuild it. That's stupid. Wouldn't want to do that.
They call the SJs Sentinels.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get those. Well, I guess Sentinels kind of been there, but you get those kinds of minds, man, where I feel like we've educated a society where people can do some complex things.
Mm-hmm.
But not always because they understand it fully, just because, we've just taught people how to do some complex things at a base level, right?
Yeah, those tools exist, those models exist. And so these people, especially traditionalists, these SJs can learn those models and be like, all right, we're going to run it. We're going to do these things again. All right, I guess that'll work in these contexts. Don't worry about that. Just gonna run it as fast as we can. It's going to work. I'm like, it did work sometimes for these people in these ways. But if you want to ignore context, then you will experience consequence. And hey, learning is learning.
But they don't experience the consequence though, Josh. That's what that's the point I'm trying to make, is that we put it to the point where we can fool people. We put on certain kinds of clothes. We talk certain types of ways. We speak like this. We do hand motions like this. We wear certain color ties. And for most people, that gives them enough concrete material to be like, hey, I either trust this person or I don't trust this person.
Right. They look like the thing. I associate the thing they look like with a positive portion, so therefore they must be right and everybody else must be wrong.
Yeah. It's just that easy now.
It is.
And even to try to be complex with people, and I'm not saying that you could have been complex with people at any point in time. I wouldn't say temper. I would say more of a balance. It's probably the same thing. But the point of it is that no, you're not, when you're going out here, you're not supposed to fly over people's heads. You're trying to bring something complex down to a level that's palatable in a sense.
Right.
But the people that I'm talking about don't even delve into the fundamentals of these ideas. Like for them, the closest they can get to is repeat something from somebody that they heard say something that was profound.
Right.
And this is where we are. And to me, I don't know, man. I have certain beliefs or views on certain types of personalities. And like for me, I like the business person. I'm a big fan of the business person. I love the person who brings technology out into the world. And I think you've said this before. It's like, even like a TE person, it's like they can do these things and it's great and they can run a business and blah, blah, blah. And then they start saying, well, I know what truth is. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. No, that's not your game. Truth is not your game. Fundamental understanding is not really your game unless you've been programmed with some understanding of a fundamental concept that you pull up and can use and wield. But it's not because you can identify it yourself. Someone has instilled it in you and you just have a grasp of that now that you just use when you need to use. But that's a difference between somebody that is asking questions of life and saying, hey, I understand why we have these concepts. See, this A leads to B to C to D and blah, blah, blah.
No.
For them, they don't, it's just like, hey, somebody taught us B. We got B.
We even got B to C. And I've been using that for a long time. I'm like, okay. So what about A? What do you mean A? Why is A even important? Why are you changing the subject? This is the whole reason we're doing this. How do you know? I don't believe you. You don't have all the things other people have.
Right. Then it becomes...
And the experts, I'm just asking what this came from. root cause analysis, y'all. Anyone?
You took the words right out of my mouth. Then it becomes, hey, somebody that I thought was respectable said this thing. Who are you? What are your qualifications? You know what I'm saying? Why should I listen to you?
Who are you? Who are you to disagree with the experts?
And then that's why I'm saying we're not having a conversation in good faith, because I just want to get down to the bottom of the idea. I don't have to be right. I don't have to be wrong. I just want to understand it. For you, it's a different thing. You don't care about the idea. If it works, it's good enough. Then that's it.
As long as you're in the good category when this conversation ends, that's all you're here for. That's all you want. That's all you're talking about. And I can appreciate the fact that is a value for some. It is just not mine. I don't need you to look good for me to believe you. This needs to work for me in my context, period. And if it doesn't, then we aren't having a conversation anymore, because that's the only thing that I'm searching for. I'm not looking for how this makes me look or how this makes you look. This either helps me fix my problem or it doesn't.
True. I think what you're saying is, to me, I need to see the logical progression of all ideas. And that can come from anybody, right? And the thing which throws me, and it just reminds me as you're talking, like the thing that throws me off is that there are people who, that's for one, that's not what they're doing. And for one, they do an association. So it's almost like a fallacy. So there are people who will say, and not to say that this is true, you engage with objectivists. Ayn Rand was a racist or something, right?
Right. I love it. She didn't like people over here. That's possibly true. What does that have to do with our talk about A to B?
Nothing.
Does that change reality in any way, shape, or form? Well, I don't like how she said this. That's probably accurate. What does it have to do with our conversation? We were talking about a different thing.
But that's what...
A nice person.
That's the thing, man. It's like they don't understand. I don't care if it was Hitler. If Hitler had a good idea, I would say, that was a good idea. That has nothing to do with Hitler.
Right? Could we?
But for some people, this is how they think. Oh, this person came up with that idea, so it can't be a good idea. What are you talking about? We're talking about ideas. And because I've had specific people come to me and I'll say something, especially about objectivism, and they're like, don't you know about her life? What does her? And I'm listening to this book about the biography, and it doesn't change anything. The ideas are the ideas. And the people who can't grasp that, if anybody is ever watching this, you can't care about that. If you care about ideas and you can identify that there are people who don't care about ideas, I'm not saying you have to get away from them, but don't let them waste your time and pretend like you're having a conversation about ideas. You are not. You're not having a conversation about ideas with them.
You are not, and you will not.
They don't care.
They are demonstrating the inability to help you with this problem. And I think that's like, if the goal is understanding, if the goal is to effectively solve an issue and gain greater clarity, they can't provide it. And I think that there are people who live in a level of overgeneralization where they cannot separate the person they can't separate the object from the concept of what that person did or what that person said. And when you have that level of overgeneralization, you're not having solution-oriented conversation anymore. Now you shifted into a person-specific blaming conversation. And if you want to find blame, if you want to be mad at somebody or find someone to get mad at, that is a perfect mindset for that. Like, you can certainly overgeneralize. But if you're actually trying to solve a practical problem, then you don't even need to talk. When someone starts blaming people or starts doing the ad hominem attacks, it's like, stop having that conversation. Refer back to the problem. If the person wants to talk about the problem, then stay. If they've decided to stay and attack the person, then this conversation is not fruitful anymore. It's not going anywhere.
True. But it's so baffling. And I guess for me, this is especially for younger generations, because you need to learn this. You have to learn this, because if you're interested in the idea, it's going to take you some time to understand that you are talking to people who don't care. And you think that, oh man, we're just going to have a discussion and get to the bottom of this, and they're going to help me and I'm going to help them. They may help you inadvertently, you know.
You may figure it out in spite of them, but you won't figure out because of them.
And it's crazy. And that's just something that you just gotta, well, you don't have to understand, but that's one thing that type helped me understand. It's like, oh, wow, this, and I'll give a shout out like to Michael Pierce, right? One of the people that I used to follow when I really first started getting into type. And the thing that I liked about Michael Pierce, and I think I shared it in this group with the group, the thing I liked about him, he would explain things in a certain way and give you a full explanation of type and basically the axes and quadrants and all of that stuff. But he also had a series that was just about, it was like images and dramatized. It really wasn't a lot of talk either. It was more just aesthetic, right? And it helped me get like a feel for the concept in addition to an explanation of the concept. You know, right. And so I really liked that part about it. But I remember the specific example he used when he was talking about extroverted thinking. It was a dripping faucet. And they called the plumber, and the plumber was like, well, is it doing this? Is it doing that? He's like, I don't know. It's dripping. It's like, well, you know, dripping is caused by X, Y, Z and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't need to know the reasons why dripping happens. I want the faucet to stop dripping. You know, I don't need an education on water and plumbing and pipes. And we all feel like that in some ways and sometimes, and that's what I mean. Like, it's different. It's all of this is a part of us. But the point of it is that if I do have the time to understand about dripping, in my mind, I'm like, this is valuable information because I have this problem now and I could have this problem in the future, but why not take on some knowledge and just pop it in the brain and just use it whenever I need to use it.
But also, like, that knowledge is going to help me ask a better question. I'm asking a dumb question now because I don't know. And someone's like, hey, by the way, did you know this? I'm like, no, I don't know this.
Yeah, true. But as you know, in this group, one of the differences when we used to have more conversations with TE, it would be that, yeah, you guys retain information, useless information for long periods of time. And I don't understand how you all do that because for them, it's like actionable information only, then dump in a sense, right? And for me, you could call it useless information, but it's not, especially for me, because I'm trying to figure out more fundamentals. I'm digging deeper on certain ideas and those transferable ideas, that value exchange idea. That's a wide thing. I can use that in every aspect of life. Value exchange, especially when it comes to people. I mean, it's only, I guess, value. It's only people in the sense, but I had to check that. But yeah, value exchange, yeah. But you're broadening and you're understanding it more and more and more in a sense.
That's key.
Yeah, man. A couple other questions, but I don't know, it's kind of late. Because I definitely want to, at some point in time, get into this whole idea of beauty.
Yeah, man. The whole, man. Because like what? Ayn Rand wrote Art of Romantic Art. What I'm trying to say.
Manifesto.
Thank you. Manifesto. She described art in a way, and beauty in a way that I thought was helpful. Man, I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful. But the thing that brings me to the question is more of so Jung and psychological types wrote extensively about these notes or letters that were going back and forth between these writers, friends, Friedrich Schiller and Goethe. I don't know, it's like 3 names before that. So I know Goethe wrote Faust, which I got an education on in the last Ocon, which is, wow, it's like took him 40 to 60 years. Took him a long time to write the whole thing. And Schiller, I don't really know. I can't recall what Schiller wrote. But the whole point of it is that Schiller was supposed to be an introverted thinking type and Faust was supposed to be an extroverted feeling type. And that's why he's bringing up these letters back and forth, because he has a lot of extensive information that he can examine to point out these different personalities. And so Schiller was, I guess, a philosopher, like philosophers. And back then it seems like everybody was a poet and a philosopher and a writer. If you were in that lane, you were like a poet or something like that. So he was like, man, basically, it seems that when rationality takes over in society, the art dies. And when it's like an irrational period, like art becomes beautiful or something, but the situation gets bad. I gotta reread it to prep myself. I think that's my sense of it that I had. So my point of it is that if we live in an irrational society right now, where's the good art? That's my question.
I like that. That's great.
Because to me, I'm like, well, what are we doing? Like, at least give me some good. My art of choice is their music, movies, television, architecture. I'm not really checking up for architecture, but I know movies and music are suffering and struggling badly.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I just have to assume that I just don't know all the stuff, and therefore there must be something good hidden somewhere, because the popular stuff isn't doing it. I'm like, well, that's clearly a failure on every level. That was a failure of writing. That was a failure of acting. That was a failure of production. So there's so many things that was like, this did not go well at all. This was bad, right? You could do better because you've done it better before.
If making money, and I don't even think people make as much money as they used to make.
Right? There's no way.
And so the music piece, I think people have identified that music is pretty much trash. Like most people, some of the things that I follow online, and they're like, the musicians that we know of, it's not like I don't really know their music. I just know them now. Right. That's an interesting piece to me because like people have expanded so much beyond music. Like music is, I don't even know what it is, to be honest with you. I'm pretty sure some good stuff out there, but it's probably, like you said, like not very popular. But the movie piece, I don't know. The thing that's so sad to me about movies is I feel like there are movies that I have seen that communicate an emotion, an idea that's so like complete. Art is the perfect, you need a complement to actual conceptual understanding ideas of things. And that's what art does for me. It delivers a point. Art is straight through the vein. You know what I mean? Or music and movies, it's like inserted intravenously, directly. There have been movies that my favorites, like even like Malcolm X. Malcolm X was a great movie to me.
Yeah. That was incredible. Yes. It represented all the things. Well, it represented a lot of the main points you want to see in a movie when it comes to honor and growth, maturity, and strength. Like, we're doing it, guys. Someone actually progressed through the stages of maturity. With
style.
Right.
It wasn't just we're making a movie that has these parts. It did it with style. And we don't, man, I have not seen anything like to the point that it's a 3-hour movie. And I'm like, look at a little bit more.
Right. The series. We could have done this again. I'd have watched the next installment of this.
Man, it's weird. I don't know. At some point in time, I got hooked on a little bit of the European the European stuff, especially like shows. I felt like they had better actors over there. And I think a lot of the stuff that they do, I like. I think like one is called like Unforgettable. It's a lot of the shows that I like to come from Europe and the UK. Nice. But still like just as far as like, not even for the style, just communicate a point. And I guess maybe because we're not in the world of meaning anymore, maybe it doesn't land for me the same way because I'm thinking there should be the hero or some journey or some learning and now we've just kind of like, no, people don't have to learn. It's like we had these emotions and we felt them. There you go.
That's a bit all you really need. And generally, this happens. It's fine. Like, it's not fine to me. It doesn't actually represent my values. I wasn't uplifted or taken to a new place that was positive by this whole time. So no, I don't understand that at all.
Right. While Maverick was popular when it came back, for Top Gun Maverick. And I think it was a little over-exaggerated, but I just think people were craving for, hey, we want to see values and people work hard for things or, have to overcome for things.
Successfully. I want people to be challenged, but successful. Yeah. This is the helpful point. It's like, you always want a happy ending. I just want someone to have a happy ending. If I'm not going to experience it in my life, then I'm going to come to a movie that shows me this. This is how people feel in their lives. I'm not going to want to come to a place where they're not going to do that. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I'm going to leave on this. I'll ask you this question, right? Have you ever read any Tolstoy? Oh, no. Is it Tolstoy or is it?
Like War and Peace?
Is it Tolstoy or is it?
Dostoevsky?
I think that's might be what it is. Dostoevsky.
Yeah. I did not fully appreciate the fact that Russians glorify suffering. So a lot of these stories are not for me. Like, I don't like them at all. Like, it's not.
Okay.
Well, you never. I hate these stories. I hate the premise. I hate the characters. I hate what they do. I don't like a lot of these stories. But I did. I have read like 2 or 3 Dostoevsky books, and I read War and Peace. And War and Peace ended okay, but like, it's a really big book. Like, there were over 1,000 pages that did not need to be there. And so I did not enjoy the book, but it ended okay, where he has like 2 or 3 good points that he makes at the end. And I'm just like, you really could have sprinkled this through some of these stories. You had a lot of time to get around to talking about it, but whatever. Anyway, I say all that to say, Tolstoy is a happier Russian author. Dostoevsky is super dark and super depressed the majority of the time, but he makes better points because he talks about the condition of man and eventually progress and such. But anyway, you were going to mention something about if I'd read Tolstoy, then something.
No, it was just more of I think it was Dostoevsky, whatever. I think it was just more of the vibe the feel that you get from it. Because basically, I've just heard that it's just a dark thing. Like, it's just depressing. Sad. It's just.
It is. He like literally dives into people's depression and like, this is people contemplating suicide and life is meaningless and it's super hard and all these terrible things happen and then you die. I'm like, yes, but also there are some good things that do happen. Some things worth fighting for. Are we going to get around to any of the positive parts? He's like, well, this person redeemed himself because he felt bad for killing this guy, and then he confessed. I'm like, okay, justice. I can kind of see where you're going here. Did you need to tell this story in so many pages? I don't know, man. I don't know if you learned anything from this. I learned I don't want to read this again. When people tell me what book do you recommend, I don't recommend this. This is not it. I'll give you the cliff notes real quick. He feels bad. He makes bad choices. He learns from his bad choices. He turns himself in. The end. Go find another book. Ugh. Maybe it's better in Russian. I don't know. But it certainly hurt my heart as an English. I'm like, this was a waste of my time. Oh, man. Let me read this quote real quick. This one dude from an individual talked about the romantic manifesto. He's like, art is the way a man expresses his values, philosophy, and purposes through media that entertain and invoke a feeling of wonder and beauty. And so I like that. I like that whole idea of saying that art is the way you express your values. It's the way you express your purposes. It's a way to communicate these things in a way to cause other people to also have or also experience with you that feeling of wonder, that feeling of beauty. Yes. If you find something that makes your life better, art is the way you can convey that to another person.
I wouldn't say I agree. I like that. I guess the thing I would say is, and back to Rand again in the Romantic Manifesto, is that the first thing that pops in my mind is when people don't make beauty, or when they say my art doesn't reflect the way that I think about the world, it reminds me of you don't make decisions things. You don't think, because the thing that she says is like, everything you put there, you put it there. This was nothing. Everything there, you put it there. You know what I'm saying? And so
it's what you are setting. You are telling us who you are and about the world at the same time. That is, your choices reflect your values.
Yeah. This is why I don't buy the whole, oh man, I'm just a gangster rapper on television. I don't really, it's not that I don't think that they don't really do it, because I don't think they always really do it. But I'm just like, you just have a trash mentality. And I don't mean that, and this is about to flip me in another direction, but I can't. This is the bouncing ball, but it's like, it's trash mentality. But this is a greater point to me. This is something that I want to talk about probably in the future. The issue that I have, especially that reminded me of it, but Black culture, is that it's not that I think the people are bad or good. It's that they have no idea if they're bad or good and no way to tell. That's the issue. There's no way to tell. And that's related to the question I was saying, like, how do you, what did I say? I said, without God, how can you know good from bad? And I'm not saying it like that. I hope people don't, because I think some people will hear that and be like, absolutely, how would you know? And I'm saying that there is, I think, another way, but it has, whatever it is, it has to be objective. It has to be something concrete. It has to be some text or something fundamental. You can't do it on the fly. There's no knowledge. You don't really know. You haven't established anything to know. So, and you just find a lot of people who are just like, well, I did this good job over here, and we did this thing over here, and we helped a lot of people. Oh, okay, what were the results? Well, people really liked it, and they smiled, and what? Yeah, we were helping the poor. Helping them do what? And it's the same concept. But that to me is the thing that bothers me about when I see people who want to do good, but they don't have a religion or they don't have a philosophy. So therefore, good could be any damn thing. To be
right. It's whatever is good to them, and it's super biased, or subjective, we'll say. And it's hard for people to nail down and a clear, objective approach. It's hard for people to nail down.
Yeah, and that's a destructive thing. And this is personal feeling. This is my feeling. I don't have any evidence necessarily. I think it's a destructive thing coming up in Christian religion, culture, feeling like most of the Black people I grew up with were Christian religion culture, having that as some foundation or platform to operate from. Now it's like, oh, we can just discard that. Just when I went to go see the guy recently about humanism, he's like, yeah, disbelief. So Black disbelief is increasing or whatever. This thing. It's like, okay, so you don't believe. What are you doing? What are you replacing this with?
What did you replace it with?
Nothing.
No, I believe that. Why? Why did you get rid of the thing that was working for is what you're doing now working? Like, I don't know what the benefit is to living an unmoored lifestyle if you don't adhere to any one thing.
I think people would just be like, well, this is why everything is about get money, because that's
what they revert to. And that is a step to at least be practical in a short-term mindset. I just think it is ineffective for a lifetime. But it is certainly something people say. And it's like, anyway, to answer your question, I really like it when people become objective and say the moral code we can use is long-term benefit. You have a long-term best interest, a long-term benefit you are working towards. That can be the continuum you use to describe good or bad. It's like, this is better or worse than this one thing. And now I have some measurement to have a standard to say, all right, if I want to go over here and reach a level of thriving where I have more stability than I used to, all right, that's going to work out for me better long-term than less stability. Great. Now I have some standard to use instead of the rules told me to. Like, don't just blindly follow rules. If you have nothing, I'd rather you follow the rules than nothing. Anarchy doesn't work out great for anybody. But, let's not surrender critical thinking. That's a terrible plan.
I get it. I guess it just becomes, man, I would never say that I think that everybody that I thought was a pretty good person was a critical thinker. I think that there are, regardless of whatever the method people select, whether it be, I don't know, philosophy or religion, a good one. I don't even know how to explain it, but the point of it is, whatever you select, there are going to be people who are just blind followers.
Yeah.
And that's just how it works,
Exists.
But the point,
I don't want those people to claim the moral high ground. Like, I have things, I've done things, and because I follow rules, I'm a good person. I'm like, you've done good things. And some of the good things you've done deserve to be respected, acknowledged, and known. Fair. But don't give advice. You could only tell us, hey, I've done these things. They work for me. There you go. That's it. You can test. You can be a person who communicates your experience. Tell a story. That's fine.
Yeah. But even if they are blind followers, they have an object that they can judge people by. There's a word in Christianity that you can judge people by. There is, for lack of a better word, and objectivism philosophy that you can judge people by, right? There's a moral standard. There's a standard. But the point of it, once again, I'm saying the point of it is just that if you're a culture that's rooted in religion, and this is the kind of culture that sprung you to where you are, in a lot from my experience. right? From my experience. And you're throwing that out the window for what? And I mean, some people go to Islam, and I think that's equivalent. It's something to.
It is something.
It's got standards, it's got text, and so for me, that whole idea of having a standard, but when you just say, "Nah, I think we're just going to get rid of religion as such or philosophy as such. I think we're just going to wing it." Nah.
Yeah, we've done that before. It is clearly a bad long-term decision. It's like, that's immoral. You shouldn't do that. Who are you to tell me? I'm just reporting what happened last time. We tried that. A lot of people decided they had their own standard. None of the standards matched. People could not resolve conflicts normally, and therefore their words weren't enough. We went back to fists. We devolved into anarchy. Please don't do that again. We don't have to do that.
Yeah. We got to talk about that one again, man. I want to put on that.
All right, we'll put that next one and see if we can break that back.